I'm Heather Westerfield, Chair of the Commission on School Accreditation. The special called meeting of the Commission on School Accreditation is being held today, Tuesday, October 22nd, 2019, at 3:30 p.m. via teleconference room from the 4th floor boardroom, Central High School Building, 359 Northwest Street, Jackson, Mississippi. An audio recording is being made of this meeting, and minutes of this meeting will be recorded. As I call the names of the commission members, please state the location of your presence for this meeting. Kelly Barfield.
Present, Vicksburg, Mississippi.
John Brewer. Sarah Foster.
Present, Brookhaven, Mississippi.
Roy Gill.
Present, Harrison County School District, Gulfport, Mississippi.
Brian Harvey. Michael Lindsay.
Present, Gulfport, Mississippi.
Dr. Valencia Martin. John Mistelis.
Present, the Oxford High School, Oxford, Mississippi.
Anthony Montgomery.
Present, Hancock Whitney Plaza, Gulfport, Mississippi.
Eddie Prather.
Present, Tupelo, Mississippi.
Brad Stevens. Fred Williams. And Heather Westerfield, 4th floor boardroom. A quorum of the commission is present for the purpose of conducting this meeting. This meeting is called to order at 3:37 p.m. All right, item 2, commission members, you've received a copy of the agenda. Please note, this is the special called meeting, and therefore only business that can be transacted is that which has been specified in the call of this meeting. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda. Please identify yourself for the record.
So moved, John Mistelis.
Okay, I heard a motion by Mistelis. Do I have a second?
Roy Gill, second.
Second by Mr. Gill. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, before we move into our next item, I want to remind the commission members, since you are all on the phone, unless you're speaking, to please mute your phones, just because we get a lot of feedback up here. So moving on to item 3, remand by the State Board of Education on the appeal of the final accountability results for 2018-2019 for the North Bolivar Consolidated School District's Northside High School. Commission members, the State Board of Education remanded the appeal of the North Bolivar Consolidated School District for the commission to take a second look at the appeal. You should have received the material provided to the Commission on School Accreditation, as well as the material provided to the State Board at their meeting, and reviewed the full presentation and discussion at the State Board meeting. We just have someone sign on?
This is Dr. Martin. I'm calling in.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Would you
Hello?
state your location for us?
I'm calling in from Greenwood, Mississippi.
Thank you very much. Okay. Commission members, we're having a little issue with a couple people signing in. If you could be patient with us just a second.
Yeah, this was Mistelis. I had trouble calling it too. So it took me two calls to get on.
Okay, we're going to back that up a little bit. Commission members, you should have reviewed the material provided to the CSA as well as the material provided to the State Board at their meeting, and reviewed the full presentation and discussion at the State Board meeting. Does the Commission have any questions of either party, MDE or the district? Hello, did somebody call in?
Hello, this is Sean Brewer.
Very good, Mr. Brewer, thank you. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I've tried several times.
You're okay. Several people were having some issues with it. What is your location?
I am on I-55 near Baseball.
Near where? Madison County? Madison?
Me?
Yes.
No, I'm on I-55 near Batesville, Mississippi. I'm over at Lewisburg High School.
Okay. Okay, so at this time, we are on item number 3. Any questions the commission has for MDE or the district? Our instructions were to take a second look at the decision on North Bolivar Consolidated School District. So, commission members, it is.
Yes, Heather, this is Eddie Price at Tupelo. I have a question. I guess the MDE can answer it if it is. From looking at the state board meeting and the presentation that was made, was it an error on human error to affect the outcome, or was just somebody? When I say human error, did the district not request something to affect the coding?
This is Alan Burrow.
Fade in and out.
Districts have the ability to request a new school code or not request a school code. They can change the name of a school and keep the same school code, or they can request a new school code be established for the school. There's no communication here from the district that specifically requests that the school code be changed or a new school code be established. So we don't make assumptions when districts are requesting changes to schools or school configurations. We simply do what they request. The communications to the department was that the grade configuration for this school 010 would change and the name of the school would change. And the district continued to use the code 010 through the remainder of the school year in their reporting. So there was no error, at least as far as reading through the communications as to the instructions that were given or received. It may have been an error on the district's part, or it may have been a decision or a changed decision once accountability results were released.
This is Sarah Foster. I have a question.
For whom, Ms. Foster?
I guess Mr. Burrows. First of all, I think that this doesn't happen very often, that a school district goes through a consolidation maybe once in a lifetime. So I would assume, and I know we're not supposed to assume, but the superintendent, the administrators, the district have never been through this process before. And I don't understand why from the MDE side, there's not more communication as to you have the option of getting a new code, keeping the old code, or switching the code to the schools. And this is what would happen if that decision is made. From everything I've heard, from what we were presented, from what I saw on the education board, state board's meeting, that was never brought up. It was just that this school district, who's never been through a process like this, it's not like they do it every year or twice a year, they just didn't ask this one particular question. So they're being bound to this rule. And am I wrong in getting that impression from this process?
So, Ms. Foster, this is Paula Vanderford. I just want to clarify, consolidations and reconfigurations do happen very frequently. This is not a once in a lifetime situation.
In the same district?
Yeah, I mean, the local school board has the authority to reconfigure or consolidate schools at their discretion at any time. That is not the local authority. Well, I mean, I can't, that's a question for North Bolivar, but North Bolivar, many of the districts in Bolivar County recently went through a legislative consolidation where many of the districts were consolidated. And then, of course, this district chose to consolidate schools within that district. But that's a question that could be best answered by the district about how frequently they have reconfigured or consolidated.
I guess the other part of that question is why don't we, as part of MDE, because this is obviously an important decision as to what the school is numbered, what number they take, either a new one, an existing building, or the other, because we can see how it has affected this whole district. I would just think that would be part of the conversation between, I know the districts in charge of their consolidation process and those decisions. But I just can't help but get the feeling that the ball was dropped on both sides here.
Well, I mean, you're certainly entitled to your opinion, but the state education agency does not have any authority in the decisions that a local school board makes regarding their reconfigurations and their consolidations, and we do not have the authority to interfere in their decision making.
This is Eddie again. Let me do a follow-up question. Sarah, I'm sorry if I disrupted your thought process.
No.
Help me to understand this. From the presentation to State Board, we had 3 groups of students, per se, to come into one school, and they came to Northside. Is that correct?
No.
Mr. Prather, hang on.
Mr. Prather,
I mean, I'm trying to, did we count, when I say we?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Right.
Mr. Prather, is this a question for the district or for MDE?
I'm just trying to get some.
Dr. Martin. When Superintendent Maurice Smith, they asked him about the school code. His statement when he sat there was they had the code for the 2 different schools, and when they had the code for the 2 different schools, he stated they called MDE and asked them about getting a new code for the school. And he didn't get an answer, or I don't know if they typed the meeting, but he said they called and they asked about it. I don't know if there's a paper trail where they call, where they ask, if it's an email trail, but he said they called, and it's like it didn't make a difference what code that they made. That question was asked specifically in that particular meeting.
Okay. This is MDE. I follow you. This is MDE question. Alan, Mr. Burrows.
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming, again, I will assume that the graduation rate was taken from Northside group of students because they had the code, the school code. Is that correct?
The graduation rate is assigned to the school code 010, but it's...
Okay, and that was Northside. Is that correct?
Well, so the graduation rate is lagged a year, so it would have been attributed to the students that attended Broad Street High School in the prior year. And then Northside High School was formed this year. Northside High School was formed from Broad Street High School, John F. Kennedy Memorial High School, and Shelby School. And then maintained that same school code 010. So they received the grad rate that would have been attributed to that school that was calculated in the prior year.
So I'm saying, so we only captured one set of students to calculate the graduation rate for this year. That's correct.
Yeah.
So what about the other students?
So students are, so their grad rates are calculated and reported at the district level and the high school level. So those students would have been included in the district graduation rate. And then they would have been, at the school level, they're tied to the school code. So they follow the school code. Anytime we have a configuration or consolidation, the student grad rate is tied to the school code.
I get that. So you got a group of students.
But you're correct. You're correct that we had that discussion at our last commission meeting.
I'm sorry.
Because of lag, no. I'm just repeating my understanding as well, that because of that lag, you're right that although all of the high school students are in the district grad rate, only the students from one of the schools is in what now is considered Northside High School's grad rate.
I'm sorry, could we identify ourselves on the phone, please? Who was that speaking?
This is Kelly Barfield.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Barfield.
And so you're correct, Eddie, that the graduation rate that lags for the high school, not the district, does not include all the students who in fact graduated in that lag year.
Okay.
And there were 200 and something students at the other school, JFK, and that other middle school that were not counted at all.
That are not included. They're not
So
included.
what's happened here, in our meeting as well as at the state board meeting, this is Kelly Barfield again, is that because the root cause of this problem is that whole coding issue, it seems like we've gone down a rabbit hole that pursues who knew what and asked what about coding. And one of the state board members mentioned that one fix she'd like to see is clearer communication. But the original question, does their score fairly reflect student achievement for that year in the metric of grad rate, really is the question I think the state board wanted remanded and wanted us to reconsider.
Okay.
And what that school, Northside, wanted to do was combine the school scores for Broad Street, JFK, which would have been a combined score instead of taking it from the one with the smaller number of students, which is the one they have the code for.
Right. Okay. This is Anthony Montgomery. I have a question. Okay.
For whom?
And I did watch both the MDE meeting and the commission meeting that took place prior. So let's say hypothetically they would have used the other school score versus the 010 from Northside, which was a higher score. Would that have made a difference in their actual accountability rating?
Yes.
Yes.
And that difference would have given them the D versus the F. Am I correct?
Yes.
Right.
So are we
Mr.
not
Montgomery,
penalizing
Mr. Montgomery, who are you asking questions to?
Yeah. I'm asking to the MDE.
MD, okay, just clarifying.
Because in my opinion, even though it's up to the school district to decide consolidation, it's up to us, the commission and MDE, to ensure that we account and we calculate correctly. And so we're dropping some students through, falling through the cracks here because they inadvertently used the incorrect school code. Had they flip-flopped and used the other school code, then we probably wouldn't be having this discussion. So it's only fair for us to look for a decision that accurately accounts for all the students that are involved in that school system.
Yeah, I thought to follow that. It just give me heartburn not to show student progress and label a community and a group of students an F when we had adult had control to say it could be a D.
Exactly.
I have a hard time grasping that.
I agree with you 100%. And at the end of the day, our goal should be to find a correct way to adequately account for this consolidation, however that may be. And I think going forward, we, MDE and the commission, need to ensure that we reach out to schools that's about to consolidate so that they understand the impact and make sure that we're not picking a score that's going to give them a higher or a lower rating, but what is going to accurately reflect the growth and the accountability of that particular school district and where those kids are flowing to.
So one of the things that we pointed out to the board was the fact that when districts
Dr. Vanderford, I'm going to have to stop you. This is questions only for the commission right now. Now, if y'all would like for Dr. Vanderford to clarify this, we're talking about policy here. And I wholeheartedly agree with what Mr. Montgomery is saying, but this has happened according to policy that's already been written. So, I mean, that's the action before us today. So if the commission, I'm sorry.
Sarah, Heather, with the same thought process, it was a policy from the state board. They had to make either one of the decision, uphold or decline. They changed policy and rescinded it back to us. So there's some wiggle room there.
Yes, sir. Well, that, and again, right now.
What was the actual?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. What was the actual sentence that was in the letter that informed MDE that there was a formation of a new high school? Isn't that really the crux of the matter here? Also, is that sentence really asking for a new code? Is it saying we'd like to reestablish, or is it just saying we have a new high school?
Who is
That,
this
is
question?
that a question for MDE, Mr. Brewer?
It is. It's just a question to read from the request, from the email that was sent from the district. It was covered in the state board meeting.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I think he's just referencing a letter that asterisk. He just wants to finish read. I'm looking for it. Hold on.
So that's correct. We had two different letters. One in April, I think, was the first one,
Looks like it's page 10 in the binder.
2018, and then the October 10th letter. And it says J.F. Kennedy is currently a 712 school. These students will attend Northside High School. Next year, Northside High School is the former Broad Street High School and will house students grades 7 through 12. And a copy of the board minutes were attached. But to answer your question directly, none of the correspondence that we have from the North Bolivar School District requests a new school code. Had there been a call in the verbal conversation, the answer that I would have given the district, as well as any other staff should have given the district, is that the assignment of a school code and the request for a new school code is a local school district decision. So we have nothing in writing in any of the correspondence that where the district requested a new school code. And as Mr. Vera previously stated, for a year, even in federal applications for other purposes, the district has continued to use the school code for over a year, and this was not a concern until the accountability results were released.
Thank you.
Yes, we're getting a lot of feedback. Commission members, if you're not speaking, if you would please mute your phones. Did someone have a question?
This is Mike Lindsay. Quick question for MDE.
Go ahead, Mr. Lindsay.
I know the policy is in place, and I think we asked this in the first meeting. All other schools that have gone through consolidation have followed this same policy that is being followed with this situation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. Business Rule Policy 20.1, I think, outlines the process that's used for calculations for accountability results with regard to consolidations and reconfigurations.
And it obviously, even in the state board meeting, the legal counsel for the board even mentioned about trying to ensure that, these commissions and boards do follow the policies that are written. And I know I'm not sure if there are exceptions, but it causes me, as Dr. Prather said, a little heartburn too, the way this worked out. But I think all other schools up to this point that have gone through this consolidation process have followed the same policy. And I think the policy needs to be looked at, but I don't think it's the commission's job to start looking at changing policy from here. I think that should be sent to another accreditation task force.
Commission members, Mr. Smith had a response to the question about the letters, but that is completely up to you. If you would like to hear what he has to say.
I would.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Smith. And if you would please direct us which one you're referring to.
Which letter you're referring to?
I'm referring to the one that they was talking about,
The October.
the letter of 18, October 18, I believe.
Page 10, commission members.
It's the e-binder page 10. It's not like the page 10 on the bottom of the screen, but it's like the page 10 of the actual binder.
Okay, yes, I'm looking at the wrong one too. That says page 6.
Yeah, but it's page 10.
Page
At
10.
the top. There you go.
Okay, it's page 6 at the bottom, page 10 at the top. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
That letter you're referring to was generated from conversation with representatives from the Mississippi Department of Education. I was instructed to develop a letter stating the new configurations and to attach the minutes where the board had officially acted on my recommendation. If you look at that letter, throughout the letter it mentions a new school. The letter that is not addressed to anyone specific because I was told all I had to do was to get the letter to the State Department and they would get the letter to the individuals in the various departments that needed that information. If you look at it, it says new. If you look at the minutes will also tell you that we're asking for a new school. It elaborates on how that school came into existence. It elaborates on how the students selected the name of the new school, the colors of the new school, and it also elaborates on the mascot of the new school. And in the last paragraph of that letter, I allude to the fact that if there's anything else that I need, please contact me. No, I did not know if I was asking for a new school, I had to ask for a new code. The old code was attached to Broad Street High School. It is my understanding anything new is automatically, it's not the same. So why would I ask for a code if I'm already telling you I'm asking for a new school?
This is Mike Lindsay. Question for Mr. Smith.
Yes, sir.
When the school year started and you were assigned the high school the number 010, that code, and you guys used it all year, did you ever have a conversation with MDE about why are you still using the old code and why didn't you get a new one?
We had some conversation with people in the federal program, and they said they were using the old code as it relates to keeping the funding because they was having a difficult time dividing out how the federal funding would follow the children. Because some of the federal funding, most of it went to Northside, but also some of it had to go to a forest school that some of the students from the middle school attended, which is Brooks Elementary.
So after they assigned you that code, was there ever a request for a new code after the fact that you saw that there was the old code?
No.
Mr. Smith, this is Eddie Prather. Did you, I'm assuming the other school, JFK, had a school code, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever request for those codes to be deleted? Or where are those codes now?
I don't know.
MDE, what happened to those codes?
There was one school that was closed that's in the...
But was there an official request to close that school and drop that code?
It says Brooks Elementary will now have grades pre-K through 6th grade. Shelby Middle is now closed. So Shelby Middle, school 012 was closed. And then I believe John F. Kennedy Memorial High School was the other school that was closed. That was 004.
So the MSIS coordinator at the school district is responsible for deleting the codes and transferring the students to the code in which they're in school in which they're assigned. MDE does not do that. The local district does that.
Okay.
Mr. Smith, maybe I'm just not on the right page still. Would you point out where it says new school? All I'm seeing is Northside High School is the former Broad Street High School.
If you look at the minutes, it alludes to the approval of superintendent recommendation to name the new consolidated high school selected by the student body of Northside High School. The new school colors, it alludes to the blue and orange and the Gators as the mascot. Under 6.7, under those minutes on the discussion items, it alludes to the fact that there's a new classification for that school.
That this language was in your board minutes and not in a formal letter to MDE, correct?
Right.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
The minutes are where it's starred.
Yes, you have a star there, and
So commission members, following the letter that he referenced, the board minutes have an asterisk on the last page of the minutes. Is that correct?
right. If you go further in the minutes, it didn't come out real good, but those items that I just read to you are highlighted. That's 6.7 and 6.8. Those were highlighted. Again, all of this was generated and done because that was what we were instructed to do. We did not know that we needed to ask for a new code. All we was told that this is what you need to do to have a new high school. We never asked to keep the code. I'll take that fault.
This letter is dated October the 10th, and the board meeting was,
in January.
but was October the 10th the first time that MDE was seeing these minutes?
Yes, because what happened, the reason you have such a lag time is that in January, when the board approved the new configuration, sometime around March, a group of citizens from Mount Bayou filed a protest. And that went all the way through the local courts, all the way to the Mississippi Supreme Court. That case was not settled until sometime in the summer, around the third week in July. We did not start school until the second week of August.
But our previous commission meeting was on October the 3rd, correct? So this is the first time we're seeing this.
No, it was in your pack.
I'm sorry, you were right. I'm sorry. Okay, I got you. Mhm. Commission members, it's still up to you to ask questions, or I can take a motion.
This is Roy Gill. And after watching everything, and then the state board, there was actually three issues on the table. And the state board was very adamant that we have to file a policy on the other two.
Yes, sir.
Okay? And so I don't know that we even have the ability, because the business rules and all are very clear So I'm at a loss of what to do other than to make a motion and to uphold MDE. So I'd like to make that motion to uphold MDE's appeal.
Okay, we have a motion on
Can I
the,
ask a question, Sarah Foster?
I'm sorry, say again, Ms. Foster?
Can I ask a question now?
Well, there's a motion on the table. If
Motion?
I get a second, we can have discussion.
Okay.
Mike Lindsay, second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Gill and a second by Mr. Lindsay.
And my question is, has this commission ever voted to not uphold a rule? But there's never been an exception to a rule on the books.
That would be a question for MDE.
I guess MDE.
We're not aware of the commission's movement to go against approved state board policy.
I can't hear.
We're not aware of the commission going against approved state board policy. No.
Clarification, at the October 3rd meeting, you did, regarding those 16 George County students, the commission did. However, the board overturned that decision.
This is Miss. That is correct. So we have, in fact, gone against the board rules.
This is Anthony Montgomery, and I want to maybe rephrase the statement I said earlier. I don't think this is a scenario where we're actually needing to vote against a board rule. The procedures are the procedures. I think this was something that was done in error. Had they gotten the correct school code, or if they'd used the other code from the other school, we probably wouldn't have this issue. So rather than voting against or for policy, I think our decision here is to try to figure out how to accurately report the accountability of the students that are at the new school. And if that means using a combination of the two codes or using the other school's grade, whichever had the majority of the students that are still attending the current school, I'm more concerned with accurately reporting than worrying about policy. And then we need to address any loopholes in policy at our next commission meeting. But right here in this scenario, we need to think about how to accurately report, because this has an impact on our state and the school districts within our state. And I'm all for trying to make as many of those school districts appear to be moving in the right direction as possible. And so I want to accurately reflect that in our accountability measures.
Well, the question, we discussed this at the last meeting, and we asked Mr. Burrows, is this policy to take the scores, the lag scores from the school building? And he said yes. So if we vote on the side of North Bolivar, then we are going against established rules. Am I not correct in what you said last time, Mr. Gill? Was it Mr. Gill that brought that up, that this has been established? That I don't like it either, Mr. Montgomery. I'm on your side, Mr. Montgomery, that I think this is a that this is a bad situation, that no school in Mississippi should be penalized by dropping of a score because of an incorrectly marking a school, whether they knew or didn't know. There's a better way to do this, but the question is, if there is a better way to do it, then if we abide by the rules of order, then we have to go with what we have this time, and after this time, we fix the rule. You can't, the question I have is, can you fix the rule in midstream of giving this appeal?
And this Roy Gill, you're correct, Mr. Miskolas. And like I said, we had on the George County middle school, we had made a different rule, and the state board decided that no, they rejected our recommendation because of that was against the policy. I'm just, I'm confused.
So the state board is more just as conflicted as we are.
Yes.
Because they took the one that they wanted to kick back the one that we didn't want to deal with, and they did away with the one that we overrode. So they're just as conflicted as we are. And so I watched all of their meetings as per our directions. They're just as conflicted on this as we are. And so my point is, I'd love to help North Bolivar out. I think that we penalize too many schools for little bitty things. We give major punitive things damage over very small things, but rules are rules. So today we're deciding on whether or not we're going to stick with the rules, which we did originally when we put it up to the state school board, that we're not going to override the lower decision, or are we going to go back and override this like we overrode the George County one? That's what we're here to do today.
So, MDE, let me ask you this. I mean, sometimes just asking questions. Is there any way MDE can clarify this without breaking the policy?
They said last time no.
I mean, no, because we have.
Let MDE finish, please.
So that's something that the internal review committee considers every time it meets. Is there something that has been raised up by a district that is not clearly defined in policy that needs to be reviewed, and is there a way to resolve something that would be perceived as an error, especially on the part of MDE? And if so, then we do that. But the internal review committee felt that policy was clear in this situation, that this is clearly defined both in policy but also in precedents and prior practice with other consolidations and reorganizations.
So just commission members, as a reminder, when they're referring to policy, they're referring to the business rules. If you look at your accountability book, well, it should be on, but it renumbers, page 27 of the 2018 accountability standards, which would be the ones that are in play for this graduation. And those business rules have been vetted by the accountability task force, and they have gone through the APA process at both the commission level and the state board level. So just as a reminder to the commission members, you have looked at these business rules that Mr. Burrows speaks to. He called them policy, but those are your business rules.
This is Anthony Montgomery. I have one other question. Let's say, hypothetically, a school incorrectly enters their code. So instead of 02, they put 20. And in that error, would that be caught when it's time to do accreditation?
I'm really not clear on that question, Mr. Montgomery.
So the question is, let's say, for instance, Bolivar High School or Northside High School, whatever the school name is now, and I think it's Northside Consolidated. Let's say, hypothetically, they input a number and the number came back to be Tupelo High School. Would that error be caught?
Yes.
MDE?
The IMSA system.
So I guess what I'm looking at here is through no fault of their own, but the superintendent from Bolivar County basically made an error in not understanding the impact of the school code. I still cannot see how I can vote to penalize the students of that district because of an error that was made in inputting or determining the use of the school code. And that's kind of where I'm sitting as my concern, is I'm penalizing a school district that's consolidated and didn't know the impact of using the school code of the building they were sitting in. Had they used the school code from the school that they were moving from, they would be okay. And so this is not a policy or a rule. This is basically an incorrect entry. into the system. And from an accountability standpoint, that's like saying a kid go out and take the ACT, but he spelled his name on the card wrong. We're not going to give him credit for the test. And I think we need to find a way. Yeah, we need to review policy and rules later. But I think here in this situation, we need to find a compromise that's going to accurately report the accreditation standards of Bolivar County Consolidated School District.
This is Sarah Foster. I agree completely with you, Mr. Montgomery. I think this is not intentional. I think it's something that's not going to happen every time. But at some point, as an accountability commission, I think it's our responsibility to do what's right and what's right for the district.
Right.
And I don't see how voting just because a rule is on a piece of paper, that's the right thing to do. That's my opinion.
I agree with
I think the district, the students, and the effect of this miscoding is, I think the whole conversation is ridiculous personally.
Ms. Foster,
This is Mike Lindsay.
Go ahead, Mike.
This is Mike Lindsay, and if it was a coding error, and not sure if it was, obviously it's affecting it now. But the district has had that code all year long. And going back to my question earlier, Mr. Smith, is that should have been caught in August and September, or maybe even over the summer when you get the code. You can't wait for test results to come out.
But I don't think they realized that code was going to affect their graduation, or how it was calculated.
And I get that, but you can't wait for the numbers to come out and then realize there's a mistake. It's got to be caught early so something can be done about it. And I know they didn't realize that it would affect their accountability, and nobody does until the scores come out. But you can't wait till the back end and then figure out there's a mistake, which would change your accountability. And I think that's why the business rules are in place.
Well, Mr. Lindsay, that thought process, that's what the appeals are for. When the results come out, if you look at the results and you can have an opportunity to appeal something in the results, that's when you will catch it.
Right.
That's all. Or how else would you know?
Commission members, y'all are all talking over each other. If you could please identify.
To increase your score.
Well, and I don't think
trying to increase their score. They're just wanting to use the district average.
It's an accurate score.
Okay,
whoa.
Whoa.
That'd be like you having a
Commission
water
members.
leak at your house.
Commission members.
And the water company saying you should have caught the leak before your bill came out. Well, I didn't know I had a leak until you sent me this bill for $2,000, and I only used $20 worth of water, so I didn't know the leak was there.
Okay, commission members, I am sorry, and with all due respect, y'all are all talking over each other. It's really hard to follow over here. If you, and I do want you to discuss, this is, like I said last time, this is your show, but if you could identify yourself and let me recognize you, and that way we could hear everyone in their comments, because we do value all comments right now. So I don't even know who's talking last, to be honest.
I'm sorry, that was Anthony Montgomery. My apologies.
No problem, Mr. Montgomery, and thank you very much. And we do have a motion on the table right now, so.
Excuse me, this is Ingrid Williams.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I called it late and.
Miss Williams, did you just join the call?
Ingrid Williams.
Yes, did you just join the call?
No, I've been on the call for quite a while. And I'm sorry, I may not have all of the facts, but I do have a question about the business rules.
Okay, hang on just a second, Miss Ingram, because we are in the point where we have a motion on the table and have passed questions. Hang on just a second.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Miss Ingrid, do you have any way of knowing what time, like, can you look at your phone and give us an idea of how many minutes you've been on the line?
Hello?
Is everybody still on the line?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm still here.
Miss Williams, are you still there? Okay.
I am muted.
Okay, remember, commission members, we still have a motion on the table with a second. You know, we are in the discussion portion. Our next, our next thing to do is to vote.
This is Dr. Martin. Please tell me what the motion is again, please.
Okay, the motion is
Repeat the motion.
the motion is to uphold the commission's prior decision and the decision of the internal review committee. Did we have someone come back on the line?
I'm sorry, this is Ingrid Williams again. I accidentally hung up. I apologize.
Miss Williams, first of all, could you state your location?
I'm sorry, Jackson, Mississippi.
Yes, ma'am. And is there any possible way you could give us an idea of how long you had been on the phone? Do you happen to know about what time you called in the first time?
Yes, 340.
3:40. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to uphold the decision of the Internal Review Committee and the previous decision of the Commission on School Accreditation. Is there any further discussion? Okay, so I'm going to do a roll call vote since we are on the phone. Okay. Kelly Barfield.
Yes.
Sean Brewer. Mr. Brewer? Did we lose Mr. Brewer? I'll come back.
He was traveling.
He was. Okay. Sarah Foster.
No.
Roy Gill.
Yes.
Michael Lindsay.
Yes.
Dr. Valencia Martin.
Yes.
John Mistelis.
Yes.
Anthony Montgomery.
Nay.
Eddie Prather.
No.
Ingrid Williams.
No.
Okay, so we have 5 yeas, 4 noes, so the motion carries. All right, item 4 is an information item. Request of the State Board of Education to consider an amendment to the business rules of the Mississippi Statewide Accountability System, specifically Business Rules 20.1 and 20.2, to address district and school consolidations and reconfigurations. So I believe Dr. Vanderford and Mr. Burrow, are y'all presenting on this one?
So we just have an update. As you know, those of you that watched the state board meeting, that the board made a request that we do this. We are in the process of selecting the members that will serve on the new accountability task force that is charged annually with reviewing and revising these business rules. And so we will be working with that group, and of course those recommendations will come to the Commission on School Accreditation for approval and to go out to submit to the state board for the APA process, and then we'll go through the APA process. So to provide the clarity and clear instructions and guidance to districts that are consolidating and reconfiguring, as requested by the State Board of Education.
Dr. Vanderford? All right, item 5. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Eddie Prather, so moved.
Okay, motion by Mr. Prather. Do I have a second?
Dr. Martin, I second.
Second by Dr. Martin. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned at 4:30 p.m.